All right, everybody, welcome to another Lightning Strikes Twice. I am Casey Rochford. That's Eric over there, and we have 5 minutes apiece. One topic per person. The other one does not know what the one before will bring up. So take it away.
All right. Well, I guess this topic's kind of philosophical in nature. Floyd already has something to say about that. Um,
Schrodinger's cat over there.
I know exactly. Well, let's see how that goes. And he's very vocal today. He's probably got a lot to say about this one. So anyway, is software piracy immoral?
Oh wow! I saw something about this today or yesterday. I was like, wow, are people still going on about this? Um, the whole thing with like purchasing software, migrating over to this whole subscription cloud service where you never really own anything,
Hmm.
kind of invites piracy into the mix. I feel
Yeah, yeah.
like
There's a lot of people who are kind of starting to take that stance. Yeah.
like the moral boundaries are really starting to blur. Like there was a time where legality somewhat mirrored ethical actions, but
Hmm.
it's really no longer the case. It's all like laws are just kind of there to protect the elite, um,
Pretty
and
much. And
and software companies are definitely elite. You
oh
know?
yeah, well, and let's also go into data in general, like music, game ROMs or something,
Hmm.
movies, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
In fact, that's a lot of people have been pirating movies and TV shows because, like, oh, you have a subscription in Netflix or whatever, and you're watching a series and then they pull that series or something, or you want to
right.
watch a movie and it doesn't exist there, or like, oh,
Yeah,
you got to be in a different country to see it. Like,
yeah,
it makes sense. Like, especially now, I have pretty firm beliefs on the whole ROM side of things. Like, in particular, old Nintendo game ROMs or Sega Genesis ROMs and stuff. Like, okay, the Nintendo does not release new cartridges. I mean, granted, in recent years, they had the little mini console kind of thing, but it didn't have all the games, right? So it's like,
hmm,
and the hardware side of it, it's like they're they have a finite lifespan, so keeping things running is really hard, and it's like, well, they don't there is not a new option for old games, and so it's like,
yeah,
well, if they're not supporting it, well, then I don't feel wrong downloading a ROM or something like that. It doesn't feel immoral at all.
right.
And even with music and stuff too, it's like, I would say the morality comes in when like the issue of morality comes in when you have the means to purchase it but don't.
Right.
That's the thing. And then, like you're saying with the subscription end of things, the way things go like that, like, okay, well, maybe they do something that borks everything up, and like now it doesn't work the way that you wanted it to. You want to run the old version. I don't think it's wrong to pirate the old version if the company is not supplying it as a
Yeah.
product. Well, what are you going to do?
Well, and to go back to music, like there's all kinds of uproar amongst like popular musicians about how ridiculously small amounts of money Spotify will pay out per stream.
Mm-hmm.
And I we have music on Spotify, and we recently like got I forget how much we each took, like 60 or $70 when we split it.
Mm-hmm.
um and that was for a few years, but like nowhere near millions and millions of streams, right? So the math isn't working out. Oh, wait, there's all these record companies and stuff on the in between, the elites, taking all of that money for doing like hardly any work,
Yeah.
and like, so like the real pirates here are them, like,
Mm-hmm.
and as always, they go for the little guy to make the example. Like, you're being a bad person by stealing this thing that we charge you way too much for.
Yeah. Well, and you'll find that the fans of music or whatever, like they will support the artist in their own way. They'll find
Right.
a way. They'll simply like, yeah, it's like listening on the radio, or even like in the days of Napster and stuff, people would download whole albums, but like also go and buy the album on physical media, that kind of
Yep.
thing. And now, of course, there's even more opportunities to help support an artist. Um,
Scalpers are assholes.
yeah,
That's
don't get me
because
started
that's
on
that's
don't get me
that's
started
just
on
people
Ticketmaster,
like
man.
directly fucking other people over, like
Yeah.
the artist still gets paid, and the venue gets paid, but people don't get to see the bands they want to see, and ticket prices go up, 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 up.
Yeah, unless you fork out a ton of money,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's time. Jesus, that one. That's a big one.
That is,
Yeah, and
yeah.
that definitely, as always, it's like that could be an episode.
Well, as often happens, I think these kind of tie together, because my topic is of a similar philosophical nature,
Hmm.
um, with a slightly different twist. Was was von Stauffenberg a bad guy?
Refresh my memory.
He was the guy that planted a bomb in Hitler's briefcase.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's
and
right.
and then it disappeared through some magic window and then came flying back in and exploded nowhere near Hitler, and Hitler did not
Mm-hmm.
die, or something like that. And then there was something about three testicles, but
Well, there's always mysteries surrounding some of those events. Well, I think it. Yeah, well, not yeah. I think people do what they think is right, and it like sometimes I don't think murdering somebody is ever really the right way, but like, well, hey, Hitler.
right, right,
That is a response to actual, like, I mean, he is responsible directly for many deaths,
yeah,
countless deaths. And like, it's kind of like the moral quandary that Data wrestled with in that the most toys, right?
right. Mm-hmm.
He where he says like, I cannot allow this to continue or something, and aim the Veron T disruptor at,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Well, I think JFK said something like, if you take away the ability to peacefully revolt, you're begging for a violent revolution.
this is
So
true. Yeah.
like, you can only be pushed so far before you have to, take things into your own hands to defend your own life, and
Well, and
whatever that takes.
especially
And
if you
well, the other moral thing about von Stauffenberg was a Nazi, so
Mhm.
like, and we see this now with Luigi Mangione. People are like, well, he had all these terrible views and this and that, and then like, but he did kind of go after a guy that was like raping people for money over, and letting them die and stuff.
Yeah, although
It's this real gray area. Like, can you really say someone's bad over one thing?
yeah, well, and especially in the case of Hitler, it's like there's an obvious trend, especially somebody
Mm-hmm.
who is a Nazi who's witnessing this stuff happen
Right.
in one way or another. Like, hey, this can't continue. Like,
Mm-hmm.
somebody's got to stop this. And I mean, the only real way to do that, I mean, what are they going to do? Like, arrest Hitler somehow? Like
Right.
that, it's
Right.
not
Like,
plausible. So in that situation, the only option to make that stop, to stop the threat, is to kill him.
yeah. And, like, there's all this hubbub about using Hitler as an example. There's like a Hitler fallacy and all this stuff.
Mm.
Like, it's Hitler's not in a vacuum. Like, it doesn't have to be as bad or worse than Hitler for us to
Mm-hmm.
justify certain actions.
Well, no, and I think the reason, because there are countless other Hitlers in history that
Yeah.
could be pointed to, is just that the reason I think the Nazis and Hitler are used as an example so often is because people are very familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you said,
and it got so far, and
yeah, I mean, if you were to say Stalin, right, most people are well, the Russians certainly are going to know what you're talking about, but the average person doesn't understand the scope of what Stalin did, the
Yeah.
atrocities and stuff. And I mean, he's yet again just one of many.
Hmm.
And so I don't necessarily think it's wrong necessarily, but yeah, I mean, maybe the Hitler-esque would be a better way to describe. Like, hey, this is getting towards that,
Right, right.
rather than it's exactly the same. You know, uh, millions
Yeah.
of Jews and other people they didn't like. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I did a minute microscopy on the whole apples and oranges thing. Like, analogies aren't there to be one-to-one ratios. Like, it
yeah,
doesn't have to be exactly the same situation. The
mm-hmm.
analogy is there to say, hey, this is something that could happen, or something in that general ball field,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe we need to address that. And then people start bickering over the details of your analogy. It's like,
Well, it's like if you said, if you're like, God, I had to do this thing a million times, and people are like, no, you didn't. You never had, not a million. That's crazy.
right.
But it's like, it's to emphasize the scope and scale of something.
Yeah.
And that's the point of it.
Imagine two firefighters in a burning house. Ooh, it's hotter than hell in here. You haven't been to hell. How do you know? You don't. And then the house is all burning down.
I could totally see that. Oh man, that's hilarious.
God.
Yeah, but I don't think that particular situation, like what the original point, it's like I don't think he was, well, he certainly wasn't unjustified. I think
Right.
that there was a lot of justification for that. So it's like, you can't really say that, oh man. Well,
Well, I at least I just want to briefly say here in German history books, he's painted as more of a hero figure for like at least trying, and
yeah.
like knowing that he would end up dead.
Oh yeah, that's a big deal.
Whether he succeeded or not, and unfortunately he did not. Ended up dying the next day. So
Well, and that's another thing too. Like, it would have been a lot easier to prevent that from ever coming to fruition early on if good people stepped
more
in.
people did that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like, well, early on when like maybe you didn't have to resort to such extremes,
Right.
you know, like don't let it get to that kind of a point before you start to try to take action.
Yeah.
you know Oof, man, those are both really good.
Yeah. That was a damn good one.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, wow. Well, we do this every week. Lots of other videos, of course. If you look at our channel, you can see we have hundreds and hundreds of videos of all sorts, including lots of these lightning strikes twices and stuff. So yeah, check them out.